Yeah, I mean, I'll take the FISA one first, which is easier, I think. I'm against government surveillance. I think that government needs the transparency and we need the privacy, not the other way around. We should know what's happening at the FBI. The word classified and top secret are put on everything to stop us from knowing. We shouldn't have had the FOIA. The FOIA should be the default. We should be able to look at Joe Biden's emails. We should be able to look, he can see ours. We should be able to look at his financial records. He can see ours. The government has huge amounts of power and we have none. We have to turn the tables on that. I think if Joe Biden has nothing to hide, President Trump has nothing to hide, we should be able to look at their, their bank statements. And it would scare a lot of people in D.C. if they ever had to reveal those. But they can see our bank statements, no problem. And it's really wrong. And I hate the idea of secret, a secret warrant and things like that. Like it's terrible. We've let this happen, and we let it happen under, things like the Patriot Act and other, just giving our freedom away. And I think Edward Snowden is more of a hero than a villain, and I would pardon him. And I think it's just terrible that we've given a lot of these rights. Now, look, in the event of a nuclear disaster or the event of something that catastrophic terrorist attack, we certainly then would like the idea that we've had these surveillance tools, but we have to be willing to sacrifice something for those freedoms, and it's not an easy decision to make. But I go in the case of freedom. That deep surveillance state is not something beneficial. In terms of the quarantine thing, it's a good question. Thankfully, that is not used very much. It does remind me of AI safety in the sense that one of the biggest fears of AI doomers, which is what we call them, is this idea that AI will generate some like super virus that just kills us all. I don't think it's a horrible idea to be able to quarantine. I think against somebody's will is very dangerous and something that has to be used only in the most grave of scenarios. Now, the problem is, as you know, that when the government gets power for the most grave of scenarios, they tend to use it and apply it every day. It's not used in the most grave of scenarios. So I'm against that law for the simple fact that we can get that power down the road if and when we need it. And that's a state power, it sounds like. So it's not even something the federal government could really do anything about. But ultimately, there's so many tools in the government's tool shed for an emergency, whether it's martial law, whether it's Defense Appropriations Act, whether whatever the case is, or just simply make a new law in an emergency. Congress can convene and make law in 5 minutes. So ultimately, I don't think that law should be on the books, but it's a state law. And then I also think that, we do need some quarantine power in the event of something really, really crazy, not COVID, but something much worse, like a smallpox outbreak or something like that. And I think that's a good tool in an extreme emergency, one that's almost unthinkable. But again, to have that law ready only invites abuse of the law. So if we ever need a power like that, we'll know it and we'll get it that day because it makes sense. And it would be a terrible day in history. It would be a terrible day for humanity. But we can get that power when we need it, not now in advance. I think that's just, again, inviting, those risks. So when we got the Patriot Act, it was a time when we were scared. We were scared of the Middle East. We were scared of terrorism. We were scared of all this stuff. And we even got scared into a war. And, we still have the right from back then. And nobody's scared of the Middle East right now. Nobody's scared of a war. Nobody's scared of terrorism anymore. Those risks and fears have died down. And we still have the powers that we gave ourselves from that time because those powers never go away. And apparently, there was a vote, and they voted to keep the powers.
And if we just rewind the clock not too long ago, when we saw, depending on what side of people turning COVID, and there was a lot of public sentiment that was publicly shared of, hey, if they don't want to take the vaccination, hey, if they don't want to wear a mask, then throw them in the gulag. So it's not too far of a stretch. I think the AI one is way more of a stretch. I agree with you there. But I don't think this one's too far of a stretch to see people say, because remember, it just has to be suspected. It doesn't have to be a confirmed disease. And there's no age limit on this. It doesn't say, it could be the young, it could be the elderly, it could be anything in between. And then I'll land with this. This was probably about 20, 30 minutes ago. A gentleman that came in, and, I got a different view of Trump than he does. especially when it comes to the 2020 election. And you can comment on this if you're aware of it. I don't know if a lot of people are because it just happened earlier this afternoon. But you have the Georgia complaint from the state election board that pulled the complaint that it pulled from the docket today. I'll just read real quick what it is because, and for those that don't know, Trump lost Georgia by just under 12,000 votes. It was 11,700 something. And a lot of people are focusing in right now on, that there was 17,000, a little over 17,000 ballots that are missing, but it's actually more than that. So real quick, I'll read this. And it says, added tabulated results. In addition to the problems detailed above, the original election night vote count includes the results for 10 advanced voting tabulators for which Fulton County has no record. This is the tabulators do not exist. There are no open tapes, no daily status tapes, and no poll closing tapes. We submitted open records requests to Fulton County specifically seeking the 10 tabulator tapes, but Fulton County responded by saying that they, quote, no such records. And I'm almost done here. To follow up, we sent 2 emails to the Fulton County Records Department and to the Fulton County Custodian of Records, Steve Rosenberg, seeking clarification to determine if the records were missing or if they exist. The Records Department replied, quote, the records do not exist. It says, see attached emails. All the emails are attached. When you combine this, you're actually looking at a little 41,690 votes that we just don't know where they're at.
Now,
So
okay.
before people want to just write off and say, hey, because every election always has frauds because there's always that plus or minus 1%. You're talking something here that could those votes went for Biden? Could have. Could they went for Trump? Could have. But the thing is
probably.
you're talking about it. You're talking about the decision of a state electoral votes. So I think people need to consider this before they just say, hey, there wasn't no election fraud.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think it's certainly possible. I personally think it's unlikely. I also personally think if nothing's stopping President Trump from running again. Nothing's stopping him from adjusting his approach to win in a landslide. Because I let you talk. I let you talk, and you're not going to let me talk, which is crazy, because I let you talk. Does that make sense? All right. So to me, again, there's nothing stopping President Trump from running again. There's nothing stopping him from winning in a landslide, which he didn't do. It was a close election, and look, missing votes, like all votes, will probably go down the middle. And it's unlikely that, in my opinion, which is not that informed for what it's worth, not an elections expert, but it's very unlikely that the election was quote unquote stolen. My guy didn't win. Look, I'm not happy. My guy didn't win, and the other guy I don't like won. But you got to be, you got to compromise in life. And at the end of the day, Trump can run again, retool his campaign, and win by a landslide if he can marshal and get the support he gets. He tends to divide the country. He tends to divide things into these 1 or 2 swing states, and these 1 or 2 swing states get extremely competitive. And everyone complains about this vote was counted, that vote was counted. And it's a hard thing to count, millions of votes. It's really tricky.